Just 301 days until the presidential election. And John McCain, the 301, hush over there, Scarborough. Scarborough says it's 299.
Oh, my God.
All right, calm down. Yeah. He's still on the stage. You're going to be, you can't boo a candidate while he's still on the stage. The night one, Joe. I have to teach you everything about politics all of a sudden.
Thank you, Keith. Thank you. I'll tell you, one thing I can teach, we were all talking about it over here. It is absolutely remarkable.
Don't read the speech.
That at this moment, yes, please, if this is your introduction to America in 2008, do not have your head looking straight down into a speech that, as Howard Fineman, you said, what did it look like?
Well, it looked like every advisor that he'd ever had given him one paragraph.
One sentence.
One sentence, and he read them all. That's like...
But he dropped them on his way to the podium and resorted them in random order.
I feel, I've seen him yesterday up there. You know, he deserves it. He wants to talk all night. Let him do it, because this is big moment.
And Gene, you were saying, though, I mean, after the third time, he misread a line.
Yeah, you should just say whatever at that point and just move on. I think it was not a good performence on
it deflated his victory. That's not going to move him forward heading out.
Well, to be serious about it for a second, these speeches here are an important time for the candidates to set the tone and introduce themselves, or reintroduce themselves in his case, around the country.
In 2004, we had a back and forth about John Kerry's speech, and we both talked about there are times when politicians introduce themselves to America, and when you get that introduction, and this is John McCain Part 2, when you get that introduction, you better get it right, because that's their impression.
Think about Obama 2004. Think about Obama, Iowa night. Now, he read that speech. He was the only one of the three leading candidates, but he did it with a grace and a passion, which you did not see with Mr. McCain tonight.
I think he had practiced.
In the opposite way, I hate to bring it up again, but don't forget Howard Dean in 2004.
That mic was in the unidirectional way. Can we remember that? And Mr. Dean is doing a terrific job, 50-state strategy at the DNC.
We don't want to talk about Howard Dean, but seriously, though, talk about John McCain's speech tonight.
No, well, we've kind of covered the speech. I mean, it was a chance to do what Mitt Romney did a few minutes ago.
We were talking about Mitt Romney actually may have given his best speech of the campaign in a losing effort tonight.
I thought he connected. He was the old Mitt Romney, who was governor of Massachusetts, and who found a kind of a middle path between extremes and managed to build coalitions and get things done. He sounded much more presidential than he's been sounding.
What else was good about Mitt Romney tonight is that he was positive. He was the positive, decent, as the day is long guy that a lot of his friends say he really is, as opposed to the guy whose campaign advisors and consultants are feeding him all these negative lines and negative ads.
It's amazing you say that, because I saw Mitt Romney tonight, and I thought that this was the first time I saw the man. And about 5 minutes into that speech, I was asking myself, where has he been? Katrina, why was he comfortable tonight? Has he decided he can let go of
he's more of an underdog tonight. I think he's been the money candidate, and he's going to speak a little more honestly. But I was interested in Huckabee. Where does he go from here? Where do his voters? Do
you want to know? He goes South
Carolina and Florida.
He goes South Carolina. He goes Florida. He goes Georgia. He goes to KeithO.
Joe, we're going to New Hampshire right now. That's where we're going for the moment. Let's go up to David Gregory in Manchester for one quick note here, and we'll remind you before we get to David that the Democratic race is now 39% Clinton, 37% Obama. That thing is tightening up. We will get back to that in a matter of seconds. David Gregory.
Keith, yeah, that's an amazing part of this story, but I want to talk a little bit about John McCain. I've been talking to some top Republicans who say, undisputably now, he has got a clear path in their estimation to the nomination. They call him a front-runner at this point, and they point to the margin between McCain and Romney. These Republicans saying it will be difficult for Romney to make the argument that he still can stay in this thing with that deficit to John McCain. A lot of questions about whether John McCain can carry Republicans down into to the South, where he faces Mike Huckabee in South Carolina, especially among evangelicals there. McCain's support of the war, support of the surge can be very helpful, these Republicans say, down in South Carolina, can change his fortunes in South Carolina, particularly if he can go on to Michigan and score a victory there, as we'll remind people he did in 2000. Keith?
David Gregory, thank you for that perspective. As the Republicans have basically put themselves to bed for the night, the Democratic race is still too close to call, 39-36. So they're in the latest numbers at 44%. It went slightly back up in favor of Hillary Clinton. Many were expecting perhaps some characterization of this based on exit polling at 8 o'clock tonight. An hour and a half has now elapsed, and we don't have it yet, and we're not going to predict it yet. It is too close to call. Keep watching this space. In the interim, there is other information coming out of that exit polling that is solid and reportable. MSNBC's Norah O'Donnell is tracking all of that stuff and has some insight as to why. And that's not just the general question about life, but just about this tonight's primaries. Norah.
Keith, you want to know why this Democratic race is so close tonight? Well, there are some really interesting results in the exit poll data that we got tonight that shows us why. First, on the Democratic side, you know, we thought that with the Iowa caucus results and the Iowa caucus so close to New Hampshire that it would have a big impact on how people were thinking. Well, look at this. One key area that we looked at is when folks made up their minds. Well, nearly 4 in 10 said they made up their minds in the last 3 days. Of course, remember, this was the period when Barack Obama was supposed to be benefiting from this big mo of his Iowa win and picking up a lot of voters, right? But apparently not today. This is key. Look at how those late deciders cast their ballots. Barack Obama and Hillary Clinton are splitting that vote. That's really amazing. That's not big mo at all for Barack Obama, and that's perhaps one reason why Hillary Clinton is doing well at this hour. And of course, we've been talking a lot about gender on the Democratic side. There is a gender gap we are finding, but what's perhaps surprising is that Hillary is doing much better among women today in New Hampshire than she did in Iowa. Women were a majority of the voters today in New Hampshire, 57%. And here, Clinton is leading in a big way. It is a double-digit lead among women today. That is really key. We have to stress that because, remember, she lost women in Iowa. That was a big part of the story. That's not happening in New Hampshire. That's why this is a tight race today. Now, looking at men, Obama has a big lead among men in New Hampshire. That was also true for him in Iowa. One other thing, of course, we're always talking about younger voters that were part of the big story for Obama in Iowa. Young voters, those under 30, were a bigger part of the New Hampshire Democratic electorate today than 4 years ago. Obama is doing well on this group. He's also doing well among the group under 30. But when we look at older voters, 40 and older, 43% to 32%, of those turning out are going for Hillary. So Hillary is doing well among older voters, and they are a larger part of the electorate today. So all of that's really interesting as we're trying to find out why this is such a close race at this hour.
Norah O'Donnell with the exit polling, and that is fascinating stuff.